when targeting a market, you can't do it remotely. You need a local partner. You need to put, let's say, 3-4 days, come to the country, meet people in person, have someone help you with it. We've been doing that for the past 7 years, and we have great success stories with a lot of financial institutions, both in Israel and global. But it's really important to have someone guide you, because within these financial institutions, like in global ones, there are a lot of positions, and you might be, wasting a lot of your time on a certain executive who you think is the right one for you. But at the end of the day, you pass this forward, and then it gets stuck in the next cycle, and you just lost like 2 months of your time working on a lead that, for the begin with, wasn't really tangible. Most of the Israeli startups aren't providing services in Israel. Only about 10% of them are actually, engaging the local market and trying to gain traction there. So it might be helpful to find a similar product and try to reach out to a company. You should bear in mind that we are talking to a competitor. Maybe you're not competing with them in Israel. You might compete with them in other markets. So this is one. But I think this back and forth of information can be very helpful. And another source will be events, like join online, in person if you can, because right now the borders are open.
And I think Israel is a good example of an amazing run-up, in the last 20 years. You are focusing outside of the country, as you said. Many of the startups have markets somewhere else, yet the ecosystem is strong. Can you? I mean, you being one of the architects, can you describe that? Like, how did that happen, or what is in your experience remarkable about this?
First, I can't take myself as one of the architects. I do have a small part, but it's not. It's way too big for one person to be involved or in charge. The Israeli ecosystem, I think it's the most phenomenal thing in the world. It works like a matrix. It works. We build this concept called the Law of Seven, which are the 7 elements in an ecosystem to create a fruitful fintech landscape, let's say. Mm-hmm. And in it, there are 4 main, we call it the immediate suspects, right? So you have financial institutions, regulators, investors, and startups. These are the basic 4 that you need in order to have something going on. But in order to mold it into an ecosystem, you need 3 additional parts. One is market awareness. Second is community, and third is education. If you can combine all these 7 and try to interact between them, you can create a self-sustaining ecosystem. And for example, in Israel, market awareness is huge in Israel. As I mentioned, the financial institutions keep delivering more and more innovation. We rank 2nd globally in amount invested per capita in fintech. Fintech is very widely discussed. I mean, if you go to universities or even high schools, okay, you have programs for high schools. We built 2 fintech courses for universities. The interest starts in a very young stage because they see this is unbelievable. The rapid pace. Look at the Melio, for example. Mm-hmm. 3 years ago, they started in 2019. No one knew them. Like, they weren't existing before 2019, and now it's a $1.4 billion company. This is unbelievable. So the way it works is that the level of interest is so high that people say, okay, what I want to do, in European, in US, in a lot of places around the world, you have young people looking up to rock stars, to movie stars. In Israel, you look up to tech stars. You look up to people who made a huge exit, and you say, okay, I want to be in this position. I understand. It's very easy to understand that you are in like a pantry dish of innovation, and if you won't utilize it, you just miss it out. So it creates a very high interest in market awareness. Education, as I mentioned, both the Israeli government have a lot of programs. Education in general in Israel is something that is very it's on a pedestal, you can say. It's something that are a lot of resources are being put to it. I think somewhere along the line in the 50s, we understood that the one thing we can always export is knowledge. And then, working on knowledge, working on creating more universities and allowing higher education is something that is fundamentally important. Lastly, so we talked about ecosystem, we talked about market awareness, and we talked about the education. Community is a very important piece because it connects everything together. So a community means that if you're not involved in fintech and you want to get more information, where do you go? Do you call the CTO of one of the banks? It's not really something you do. So you need to go to an event. You need to consume some content. You need other people to feel comfortable with other people who are also in your stage, or you can talk to, you can understand more about the landscape. You can maybe find yourself a new position. And this community is vital for creating these relationships between them. So ourselves, I'm also president of the Israeli Fintech Association. We have numerous events, over 30,000 members, and it is a content hub. People come there to connect both to the local Israeli market and the global one. And all these 7 together create this phenomenal ecosystem that beacon globally. Okay, so content comes in 2 forms. One is the writing part, when we do a lot of writing, but when I mean content in the events, it's panels, keynotes, companies coming to showcase their products, not necessarily a written article, but more on trying to bring people together to start a conversation or discussion about a fintech topic. And this is how we build the events. So every event is focusing on a different subsegment in fintech. And then we go and trying to drill down and bring the interesting companies and financial institutions to talk about the topic. So in Israel, it's there's a lot of way to consume knowledge, to get educated in fintech. You can start an internship at a startup. You can go to university and find add fintech courses. But I think the most important one is just stay up to speed. Go to Google and just ask for you can ask in your Gmail to get the fintech update. The fundamental is just read, just stay ahead of the trend, understand what's going on, look at what other markets are doing in terms of what happens in the M&A segment, what is going on in investment, where investors are putting capital, and you'll understand where is the interest going. So even if you can't do that, just engage with an advisory firm that will help you screen the information and fed it to you. But it's just about, you don't need a degree to know fintech. You don't need to go to a higher level education. You just need to put enough time and effort. And I think the best thing, if you can, is to shadow a CEO or get an internship in one of the startups. This will be by far I'd say the most enlightened concept you can do to get more knowledge.
Okay, I think so that you find that CEOs and startups are open to that, right? I mean, that's something that we have to also learn here, because people are not typically open to that.
Yeah, definitely. In our firm, there are between 5 and 7 interns at all time from all around the world. It is something that we truly care about, because we want them to get to know the Israeli market. We want them to teach them a lot of fintech, but also the Israeli startups. human capital is scarce in Israel. It's very hard to find good employees. If you come in as an intern, and it might be a good possibility that you'll stay as an employee eventually, because good people are hard to find. So take that in consideration.
All right. And so CEOs also should take that into consideration, that interns can not only do photocopying, but they can also bring in fresh knowledge.
No, I don't think that the days have passed. No one takes an intern. We don't have the time. You need to put time in educating, explaining, delivering content. You don't get interns for that. I mean, I can't say for the rest of the market. I know in our firm we're very selective in who we take as an intern, and they're doing very extensive work that at the end of it, you can look at them as fintech advisors or fintech analysts, let's say. So, and I think that the rest of the market, or most of the market, will be similar.